welcome to We're Not Wizards. Can I hear it?
Yes.
One here.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for August. Now, a long time ago, you just had plain old catacombs. And then we involved a little bit of a Wyvern's lair. And then we brought in some castles. And then we decided to go into a conquest. And now, we're sick of the war. We're tired of the fight. We just maybe want to get our little square-shaped blocks and make something. So we're moving back into the cubes. So here to talk about Catacombs Cubes with me, he's not only a repeat offender, he's kind of like on parole, he's out there, he's building stuff. He's just, he's here. It's Aron West from Elzra Games. Hey Aron.
Hi Richard.
How you doing?
Keeping well, thanks.
Good.
Working hard.
Playing hard.
Yeah, a bit of both maybe, but not an awful lot of play to be honest with you. Mostly work.
No. You're one of my favourites. You know that by now.
Well, it's sweet of you to say so.
It's just one of these things. But yeah, it was a long intro, but the reason it was a long intro is because you have a new game coming to Kickstarter very, very soon. Some would say it is a bit of a departure from what we have seen from the House of Elzra in the past, and that you're maybe doing a little bit of homemaking, you could potentially say. So I guess we should start off first of all by saying hello to everybody who's out there who hasn't listened to the show before. The reason we do this is because I like having Aron on the show, because he's always good fun. So how are you? Are you doing well? Are you excited? I think the first thing to touch on is how's things going with the rest of the fulfillment for the campaign at the moment for the Catacombs? Kind of big box extravaganza kind of manufacturing and stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah, so that's a good place to start. So, yeah, we're working hard on that still. There's been some delays with the factory. In the past, when we were newer to Kickstarter, I'd be willing to suggest that we were responsible in part for those delays. But with this one, we were broadly ready to launch the campaign and put the product into production. And this time round, without wanting to throw anyone under the bus, it's been the factory that's been slow to pull this together. What we decided is that we had a choice at the beginning. This is a complex product, and we could either get the factory to deal with the complexity, or we could choose to get the fulfillment companies to deal with the complexity.
Yeah. And
we opted for the former. So this means that the factory is responsible for constructing 4 different SKUs.
Yeah.
And the SKUs roughly are the main game, the big box version without any of the extra content.
Yeah.
There's a variation that adds in this Wildlands expansion. There's the upgrade version if you had the game already.
Yeah.
And there's the Plus version, which gets you everything, with the exception of the Wyverns expansion. So we knew when we were getting into this campaign that people were going to be asking us to make a lot of the different products that they may have missed available to them. And so we knew that we were going to be, in effect, opening a sushi bar with a number of bespoke orders. The right away, we'd have to have a solid plan to manage that potential complexity. And part of what we did, in addition to being very ready to produce the product itself, was we developed our own pledge manager. So we now use the Elzra Pledge Manager for helping to maintain and organize the various orders. So we had that on the one side. We thought actually we'd use it the first time with Catacombs Cubes, but we were able to bring the release of the Elzra Pledge Manager forward. And it's been very beneficial in allowing us to segment backers according to the various fulfillment centers and to reach out to backers that we needed more information from. Okay?
Yeah.
So that was useful. But during the course of the campaign, we decided to have the factory take on the complexity. And so they were supposed to be creating these 4 variant SKUs. Okay? And there's getting them to understand how to do that has been challenging. And I meet with the factory owner and our account representative at the various conventions. I met with them at Origins, for example. I met with them again just recently at Gen Con.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that everything is complete. So all the wood parts are complete, all the printed parts are complete, all the vacuum trays are complete. Everything's complete. It's just sitting there waiting to be assembled. And for that assembly to proceed, now that they have our assembly instructions well understood, is they need our final shipping plan, which is what we've submitted to them.
Yeah.
And now we're working with them on that shipping plan. But we're approximately 2.5 months late here because this was supposed to be really wrapping up at the end of May. So we've really just been struggling to get the factories to understand what they need to do this final assembly part. And I think there's been some language barriers. For the first 2 projects that we did with this factory, I was working directly with the factory owner.
Yeah, yeah.
The X factor in this project, which has contributed to this delay, was that this factory's become more popular, and we were delegated to this account representative, and this has been the source of the challenge. This is something that I didn't foresee when I did my detailed plan for the entire project. So, Catacombs Cubes, for example, is being produced by a separate factory. It's completely different. So this has helped us to work with both projects in parallel. Okay, so I'd wanted to launch Catacombs Cubes after we had completely fulfilled Catacombs 3 with the playmats.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think if people can indulge me, I think it's better use of time to do the campaign for Cubes now, and then focus on the fulfillment of Catacombs 3 with the playmats when it arrives after the final assembly is completed. And I work every day on this. Every day I sit down and I do my best to answer questions and move this forward. And as of this weekend that's just passed, so we're talking on August 19th, Richard and I, this weekend that's just passed, I think I've made some breakthroughs there in getting them to understand the draft shipping plan. So that's where we're at with that. I just couldn't wait any longer if I wanted to release Cubes this year. And I do want to release Cubes this year. Not because I'm being impatient. I've already delayed it for 1 year. Originally, we were going to launch the campaign for Catacombs Cubes last year in September.
Yeah,
And I've delayed it for almost a whole year, and the game has benefited from that additional development time. So while we've been waiting, for example, for feedback from the other factor about Catacombs 3, the playmat, we just switched horses and worked on cubes. So the two have been basically in development in parallel.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds completely... It must be frustrating if you're trying to... Especially if you think somebody's grasped the game plan and how you want something to play out, and then you have a conversation with them and it turns out not entirely grasped what you're doing. And these meetings, they generally don't happen day after day after day. It's usually you'll have a catch-up every couple of weeks, and if things, as you say, things kind of move in the wrong direction, you can end up frustrated. But one of the things you're very good at is keeping all the backers kind of informed, and I'm guessing that, well, a delay on a Kickstarter is kind of like an expected, a kind of a normal thing, but you're generally pretty good at kind of communicating kind of any potential kind of road bumps in the way, but also at the same time understand that you're wanting to get kind of cubes kind of out there, because it is it's a new direction for you, from what I can see, and I wanted to ask you about that really, because you could continue, I guess, in some way, shape, or form to go down the kind of the dexterity system kind of route, and I think you could continue to release expansions to that, and people would, I mean, I'd be quite happy to kind of jump on every single time you release something different for the kind of what you could say a franchise. What made you decide to break away from that, to go for something kind of different?
Well, when I first saw the early prototype of Catacombs Cubes, I really liked the puzzle-like element of building with these blocks to create the final shape. And so I approached the designer, and this will be our first third-party design that we publish. So Ken Vallis, who is a fellow Canadian just down the highway from us, is responsible for the original concept behind Catacombs Cubes, what became Catacombs Cubes. And he shaped the original rule set, and I stepped in and I've helped him to really refine the game and to bring it into the Catacombs world. My intention here was to produce a game that is still innovative, still has our trademark tactile element to it, but is approachable in a way that's completely different. Because let's face it, there's some people that don't want to flick discs around on a board, right? As much, or playmat, as much as people that are part of the whole Catacombs franchise, as you said, like the Catacombs games that involve flicking discs. There's quite a lot of people that don't necessarily find that enjoyable, or don't necessarily want to do that on a regular basis. It's not for them. And that's fine. I mean, this is actually a game where that has Catacombs on the tin, if you like, that you can actually remain seated for the entire time that you're playing it. Imagine that.
Yeah, my knees are very, very grateful to you, Mr. West, for your kind consideration.
Exactly. So you can sit for the whole game now and play it. The other thing about Catacombs Cubes, which is interesting, is the fact that this will be the first game that will include a solo mode out of the box.
So that is interesting.
So you can play it by yourself. And I invited Ken to work on developing a solo mode, and it is available with the game right at launch. We're not going to do any, surprise, here's a solo mode, which must have been in development. You don't just invent these things overnight and pump them out. It takes time, effort, resources to develop something like this and do it properly. So that was another aspect of the game. You can, not only are you So you're not flicking discs. You can remain seated, and you get a solo mode.
I'm sold. No. Is it exciting for you then to have like kind of different kind of direction? I mean, has it been like a nice comfort blanket to get underneath the kind of the Catacombs kind of brand and go, yeah, we just need to do this and we'll do this and we'll bring in this kind of mechanic. But is this kind of like a little bit of kind of outside your comfort zone as well? Kind of moving away from something that you've been nigh on involved with for at least, was it 3, 4, with longer than that, isn't it? 4 or 5 years now for the Catacombs kind of game itself.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it wasn't that far out of the comfort zone because, let's face it, Catacombs itself does feature a gelatinous cube. So I just thought of it as that you've got lots and lots of gelatinous cubes that you happen to be using to build these structures. So, but in all honesty, though, it's a game that features wood parts, and wood parts is definitely something that we specialize in. I think it would have been a bit more outside of our comfort zone if it was a game that featured plastic miniatures, which at some point I think we will do because the team and I are interested in doing something like that.
Yeah.
But it won't be a miniatures for miniatures sake kind of game. But the fact that that this game, Catacombs Cubes, uses wood parts it's pretty comfortable for us in that regard.
How do you play it? I mean, what's the premise behind it? What's different from cubes and anything else that you made before?
Well, the premise behind it is that you're looking to score points, and you're building the town that's above the catacomb. So if you look at the Catacombs 3 box, you see this kind of village that was drawn there. And this is the idea that, you're building that town and, the catacomb is underneath it somewhere. But that doesn't necessarily factor into this particular game. So it's kind of like a bit of a preview, if you like, a prelude to the original Catacombs 3. And what you're doing in it is that you're, on your turn, the game is played over several turns, and on your turn, you are either drafting resources or building a structure tile. There's various kinds of structure tiles, but when you build a structure tile, you're flipping it over, and there's artwork on the other side, and you're adding it to the village grid. When the village grid grows to a certain size, according to the number of players, the game is over, and there's some final scoring, and then a winner is declared. Okay? And that is a very, very broad overview about what you're doing in it. Okay? So on your turn, you're either drafting or building. And so a building tile has a 3-dimensional representation of the building that you're expected to construct.
Yeah.
Okay? Like a very simple one might be the obelisk, for example. The obelisk consists of 5 cubes. They're all stacked up, but you can arrange those cubes in any way you want. So there's different kinds of resources in the game, and these resources correspond to Tetris-like shapes. So a single cube is black, and it's called obsidian.
Yeah.
2 cubes stuck together in a line is called glass, it's blue. 3 cubes that are stuck together is bamboo, and so on. Okay? So to make, say, something like the obelisk, I could stack 5 single obsidian cubes, one on top of each other. I could also, conversely, take 2 glass, which consists of 2 cubes, put 1 glass down, put another glass down, and put an obsidian on the top. Or, for example, I could take 1 bamboo, which consists of 3 cubes, and put a glass on the top. And so that's, again, 5 cubes. So there's already, just with this very simple example, 3 different ways that I could build this particular structure. Yeah. And that's the novelty of it, in the sense that each turn you're going to be getting different resources, and each turn there's probably going to be different buildings that you have available in the village plan for you to construct, and you'll be able to then contribute those buildings to the village grid. And the start of the village grid is always the town hall in the center. So you build beside it. But when you build something, you're also getting rewards. And when you connect something, connect two tiles together, there's also connector rewards. So there's various ways of scoring during the course of the game. And you also have the option of using these coins, which you're going to collect, and you do start with some as well, that allow you to do different actions too. So an example of one of those actions is that I might have a resource that's unsuited to the task. So for example, I might have the T-shape, which is the crystal piece, and I really need a straight, I don't need the T, I need the straight 3. I really need a bamboo. So I can actually take a power drill or hammer or chisel, if you like, and I can actually break off, not physically break it off, but you kind of substitute it. Nobody expects people to run to their toolboxes and hack the piece. It's not a legacy game with wood, right? Where you've got to kind of hack the pieces up. Nothing like that. Okay.
You've thought about that though, haven't you? I mean, admit it. There has been a part of you that thought we could do a legacy version of this.
Yeah, and then sell people infinite sets of wood parts to replace the ones that they've mashed up, right? Yeah, it's an interesting marketing idea, but yeah, we did maybe on a dark and stormy night we did consider it briefly, but anyway, you can break it down. And you can get the crystal to become a bamboo, for example. Okay? Actually, in the case of crystal, you can make it become a stone, which is an angle one. But the point is that you can break it down, and then you'd be able to add it in. So there's the opportunity of actually transforming the resources that you've drafted as well. So there's quite a lot to it. So you can choose to play it as a game. There's a simpler version of it, but as you get more familiar with it, you can add in some of these other elements. So, for example, you have your own residence in the town. So you don't have to necessarily play with residences the first time you play. But once you're more familiar with it, you can choose to deal out the residences. But an important thing that we did consider is the fact that you can choose to use, when you're drafting, either wooden dice with stickers or quarry tiles, tokens. So, So if you don't like dice, you've got tiles instead. The other aspect to it is that you can choose to play with a competitive version where if a particular piece, say a crystal, is not available in the quarry supply, I can take it from one of the other players' construction yards on their player boards. That's a take that element. If you don't like that, you can play with what's called the passive resource rule, where you take the next resource down in an ordered sequence. So the next one down from crystal would be, say, something like stone. So instead of taking crystal, I would take a stone from the supply, and if the stone wasn't available, I'd take a bamboo, for example. So you can choose to actually play the game now in such a way that you can play with the passive mode with tiles, which is a very European-style game, or you can play it with dice competitively, which is a more American-style game, or any combination of those variables. And these are all first-party supported rules, so these aren't just stuck at the end. These are advanced rules, and the dusty cobwebs at the end of a manual that nobody ever reads. You actually have to choose when you're playing the game how you want to do it. Are we going to play competitive versus passive? And are we going to use the wood dice versus the quarry tokens?
Did that come out in a discussion then? Did you actually, when you were going through this with Ken, did you have the discussion and say, right, are we just going to go down one route and go with the dice and the competitive, or did you actually say, did one of you turn to the other and just say, well, can't we do both? And is that kind of where it came from, or was that the kind of the plan from the very beginning?
The plan from the very beginning was wood dice.
Right.
Sorry, I should say the plan from the beginning was dice of some kind.
Yeah.
They're 6-sided dice, and my concern that I expressed to Ken is that given the arrangement of the faces on those dice, injection molded plastic dice, custom ones, would be prohibitively expensive. And that turned out to be true. So we pivoted to the use of the tiles. And very towards the end of the development cycle, another colleague of mine in the industry, Jack Eddy from Cardboard Herald, he said to me, well, you do know that there's this game La Granja No Siesta that uses wood dice, and they have stickers, and this could be a solution to the production cost issue. And I proceeded to buy a copy of La Granja No Siesta, and we evaluated what they had done, and because in my previous deliberations related to wood dice, I was concerned about the quality of them. But in La Granja, the quality didn't seem to be an issue. They rolled fine. And for this game, it doesn't have to be perfect, in quotes, randomness. Okay?
Yeah.
Like, remember, with casino dice, they have to be manufactured to a very, very precise standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Or else they're unfair. Okay?
Yeah.
So, but this game, the way that the randomness that these dice are producing, the source of randomness, it doesn't matter whether it's right precise down to the standards that would be required, say, for a game of chance in a casino. So we were able to, and the designer, by the way, was very happy about this, to introduce the wood dice right at the 11th hour again and provide people with the choice. So both of these techniques for doing the drafting were well tested, because the whole game started with wood dice, and it was extensively tested with the quarry tiles as well. But it just so happened that we were able to find a manufacturing technique that we were satisfied with that allowed us to bring the wood dice back. Now, in regards to the competitive versus passive modes, this was direct feedback that I received last year from a couple of educators at Dice Tower Con. And they said, this game is going to be great as an educational tool for teaching children spatial relationships.
Wow.
But you can't, when I'm trying to control a whole classroom of, say, grade 5 kids or grade 4 kids or whatever,
yeah,
I can't have them dealing with a take that mechanic and, little Johnny took my crystal away from me, and, what do we do about this? So we listened very, very carefully to that feedback, and we made sure that if you want to play with the take that mode, you can, and we identify it as such. You can play with that mode, or you can play with the passive mode, and it's completely interchangeable.
I've played recently with wooden dice, and I think the only thing I found to get over with wooden dice is the actual weight of them, because they're considerably lighter than your normal kind of acrylic dice. So they feel. It's just a case of getting used to the weight. The actual randomness, I found it was fine, and it's a game I'm currently. I've been lucky enough to be sent a copy called Sumo Gnomes, which is about rolling dice and pairing off against others. So I can see where the concern is. I'm just fascinated by the kind of the different route that you've gone down with all the kind of the different options. And was that also to help with the longevity of the game as well? To allow people to have these different modes that they could kind of mix and match, so they could get the base game to the table. Everyone would understand the different rules, but then you're bringing in almost like a slight variation, so we could say, well, today we're playing cooperatively, but we're going to play with the quarry tiles because to kind of reduce the kind of the randomness of the game effectively.
Yeah, that's correct. We didn't want a particular mechanic or rule set to undermine the value of the game for a certain class of player. And by doing this, you're right, we do increase the replayability, because you can now give it a try in using the different modes, and it's all pretty smooth in terms of how you set it up and choose how you're going to play it. So we do like to make sure the games that we produce and publish are well supported and remain in print. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that we would address as many of these potential concerns as possible.
And the accessibility as well, with you mentioning that you're looking at taking it into grade school, I take it you're kind of staying with the same thing that you came along with the Catacombs series so far, is that you can introduce it to kind of younger children and they have the ability to kind of quite easily grasp what's going on. Because I was able to play, Catacombs Conquest, Catacombs and Castles with my youngest son, who we didn't necessarily play with the cards on Conquest, but he certainly was flicking the discs about and stuff like that as well. So was that again something with Cubes to say, well, we kind of want anybody just to be able to pick it up and get on there and understand the basics and kind of start playing?
Well, certainly from the perspective of looking at the game as almost like a wood Lego set, you can do that. I mean, the tiles are there, and you've got a variety of different shapes that you can challenge yourself to make. And certainly kids, just to get started, may just enjoy sitting there and doing some free-form imaginative building of their own.
In terms of you kind of playtesting it, has it been a different game to approach in the playtesting? And obviously with there's a big difference. Well, to me there would be a slight difference in the terms of playtesting a dexterity game, which can often be down to a your mileage may vary type thing. I'm dreadful at Catacombs. My finger, lives are lost and animals get hurt whenever I start flicking discs, anywhere.
Sure, yes.
Whereas cubes sounds attractive to me, unless of course I'll probably end up eating a cube, Aaron. I'll end up in the hospital or having to wait. It's just how I roll. But the approach to playtesting was that. Did you have to look at a slightly different approach to your playtesting than you'd done before with the kind of the Catacombs kind of dexterity game?
Yeah, definitely. It's a very different game, because there's an ordered sequence, and you're, unlike in Catacombs, for example, there's not the potential to be dealing with all these different changing game states. When someone flicks a disc in Catacombs, the whole game state can change. In fact, that's one of the key strategies in Catacombs is to manage that change in game state. But with cubes, it's got more regularity to it. And in terms of the actual playtesting, I have to give credit where credit's due. Ken the designer, was responsible for conducting the vast majority of the playtests. So it was something that he did, and he would give me regular playtest reports, and I would provide my feedback to him. And it was really my knowledge of various worker placement games, because that tends to be what our group plays a lot of, that I was able to feed him some suggestions based on other designs and other techniques and mechanics that I had seen.
Yeah.
So Ken did the vast majority of the playtesting and did a fantastic job of it, I might add. And because he had to get together groups of different numbers of players, because although the game supports 1 to 4, in the initial boxed version of it, if you like, on the Kickstarter, you can receive the components to support a 5th player.
Oh, right, okay.
So, and and who knows, it may scale from there.
I am going to, just as a very, very quick aside, and before I forget, because I am an old man and my brain does not work like it is, how excited are you for the kind of the update of Kalis? Because I know it's one of your favourite games. Have you been keeping an eye on the news about the kind of the updated version I think it's going to be, might be coming to Kickstarter quite soon?
Well, first of all, I hadn't heard that it was coming to Kickstarter soon, but I have been following it, let's say, at arm's length.
Okay.
So I'm aware that they're doing something with it. Is it is it something that we're going to like? I'm not sure. I can guarantee you that if and when it's released, we will be getting a copy and we will be testing it. That's for sure.
Because I know it's one of your favourites. I
Yeah,
remember speaking to you about
it is.
it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah?
We played it just the other day.
Wow.
So it's definitely one that we'll pick up, and it's interesting. I'll I meet different game designers, and sometimes they'll have created a game that has worker placement mechanics, and quite a few of them have never played Kalis, and I always say to them, if you're making a worker placement game, it really behooves you to play my opinion, I think is the opinion of many others, that to try the game that got it all started and really sort of encapsulated what a worker placement game could look like.
I heard it's who was talking about it recently, and I'm gonna hate myself for kind of like forgetting who this was, but they basically said that Kalis was like pure kind of worker placement, that there wasn't any of this kind of variation thing that's been brought into a lot of worker placement games where you get people to share spaces, or there's an additional kind of mechanic you can add where you can gain the rewards. Kalis was just like, if you're not in this game, if you've not kind of started playing this properly within the first kind of couple of moves, then you can end up kind of ruining the rest of your game. It can have a kind of a repercussion for how you kind of play later on. So
which
I'm kind
frequently
of
happens to me, by the way.
I'm interested in kind of I'd like to play it, basically. I'd like to see, because I am a fan of I am quite a fan of worker placement games. Dinogenics, which I got to the table quite recently, has become a bit of a firm favourite of mine. Of late, have you not thought about doing a worker placement game then, Aaron? I mean, is there not in your playbook? Is that going to be your kind of your I don't know, your last kind of your final kind of performance on the operatic stage of tabletop, is for you to release the ultimate worker placement game, do the mic drop, and then just check out the hobby altogether, kind of thing?
Well, there is a worker placement game design that I'm following. I did meet with the designer a couple of times, and he's still working on refining it. But I've said to him that I'm interested, so you never know.
That's not a no. That's not a denial. I've got this on tape. That's fantastic.
That's not a no. That's correct.
That's fantastic. In terms of one of the things about Catacombs Cubes, which I like, is you were kind enough to send me the rulebook to have a look over in awe and wonder, because it was like opening up a rainbow and seeing what was inside it, because the illustrations, the graphics and everything are bright and wonderful and colourful. And it wasn't a case that Catacombs wasn't bright and colourful, but was a kind of a different approach. Like you say, this was kind of like the above ground kind of palette. Who have you got doing the art for Catacombs Cubes then?
Well, for this game, illustrations are drawn by the talented Dennis Martignettes, who also did 10-Minute Heist, The Wizard's Tower, among other titles. Mm-hmm. And all of the graphic design is done by our in-house guy who's responsible for this, Jordan Silvestri. So he does all of the layouts for us, and the graphic design flourishes.
The artwork in Catacombs Cubes is beautiful, and it's airy and light and breezy, and it's kind of enticing, and it's very it's very cute, and I like it an awful lot. Was that what you were trying to go for, along with the kind of the accessibility, to make it kind of, that kind of enticing?
Yeah, we wanted something that was going to be family friendly, appealing, attractive, and more importantly, Dennis, based on some of his previous work, has experience in drawing these highly detailed illustrations of fantasy buildings, and including in those illustrations a number of little flourishes that, if you study the tiles, you'll see little nods to the Catacombs world in there, and they're all pretty deliberate. Like, there's a lot of the heroes and monsters and other characters from Catacombs that make an appearance. Not in every single one of them, but in a lot of them. I even say the vast majority of them all have little nods to the Catacombs world. Here's the Centaur Warrior doing something. Here's the Wyvern Rider doing something, and it's them having an interaction, a conversation. And these figures are tiny, but this is the degree of detail that we're seeing here, because the artwork budget for this game was considerable. There's a lot of art in here. I think there's at least 30, 40, 50 buildings, something like that. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of diversity there in that regard, in terms of the number of buildings and how they're presented.
Did you make any suggestions for little kind of Easter eggs? I mean, is there kind of like special nods and winks in the game to people that only certain people will get? Kind of thing, we'll just put that in there, that'll be cool, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a little story, if you like, that's told in these tiles. Okay, so this is the first time I'm sharing this publicly on this kind of a forum, but there's a level 1 building called the Wedding Church, because Nazilla and I got married last year, and we got the illustrator Dennis to draw us in front of the wedding church. So when you look at the wedding church tile, there's the two of us there. Nazilla's in her white dress and I'm in a suit. And then there's another tile that we have available where it's called the honeymoon cabin. And it shows, again, us walking up to the front of the honeymoon cabin, and there's a character or something like that greeting us or something. Now, I should mention, folks know that I'm always working hard, so I haven't even taken a honeymoon yet. I haven't even had time. That's how committed I am to working on the Kickstarter for Catacombs 3 with the playmats and Catacombs Cubes. But then, just to continue the story, there's also the Hearthshire Stables, which was a building that showed up in the stretch goals of Catacombs 3 with playmats. It's another location you can go to, and it now has a corresponding tile in this game. And Nazilla, who loves horses, is there. It's her character that's there at the stables. And finally, there's another tile called the Homestead, where she's standing outside it, and I guess this is supposed to be our house or something like that. And she's kind of directing people to move the stuff into it, or something to that effect. So there's this little story that progresses across. It's all Easter eggs across this one set of tiles.
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh, you actual romantic man. I bet you, and you would have and
I won some points for this, of course, right? I got some nice points for this for sure.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you got your lunch made for you for a couple of weeks and stuff like that, just as a thank you. That is just so kind of cute, and that's going to be in a game. So like,
yeah.
when
So
this gets funded,
in the base game, it's the wedding church that's in the base game, and so that you can see us there on that tile for sure.
You're just, I'm speechless because that's just one of the cutest things I've ever heard. I've heard of many things, but yeah, that's kind of cool. Just that there's going to be potentially, thousands of people that are going to be like opening the box, playing the game, and there's going to be like a little representation of your kind of married life in there. That's just, yeah. I'm a big soppy fool, but that's the kind of thing that I kind of like.
But I got to fit the honeymoon in. That's the thing. Like I've got to do that.
You've got to take some time off. Do you know?
I
it's
know.
like
I know. I had a backer write to me on a comment recently saying, "Aaron, just take it easy. Like just make sure you're looking after yourself." I've still got to write back to the gentleman or lady, whoever it was that wrote to me, but and respond to that comment because I was touched by it. I appreciate it. But yeah, we're certainly working hard. That's for sure.
You're always working far too hard. You need to take a break sometime. Enjoy it. There's no point in like growing 1,000 flowers if you can't stop for a while and smell them on occasion.
Well, I'm going to have to get some suggestions about where to go for a honeymoon. You just get to a point where you're just so in the zone all the time, right? Like I just don't even, it's like, well, where do you go?
Come over here.
Visit the old country again. Because I was born. Because for folks that weren't aware, I was born in London, in England. So
yeah.
Richard is based in, as you know, you're in Scotland, right?
Yeah,
Scotland. Yeah. So yeah, of course. I mean, that's definitely going to happen at some point. I do have to show Nazilla. She wants to come and see England. She hasn't been there before, so I do have to come and give her the tour. I've been a number of times and enjoyed all the cultural sites, the heritage sites, that sort of thing. So, in fact, actually, there's at least one building that was in there that was inspired by the UK, which is Tower Bridge.
Oh yeah,
Tower Bridge. You can build Tower Bridge in there.
That's so cool.
That's one of them.
This is an entire side to Aron West that I never expected to be hearing from. The kind of the architect, the romantic, the kind of thing. One of the things I guess I do have to ask is, is there concerns at all about the kind of the dexterity game kind of fan base, how they're going to take to having a kind of a pretty much a different game from what they're used to coming from the Elzra stable? Have you had any feedback to that effect from kind of like the fan base at all? I mean, I'm guessing you've obviously been putting the feelers out and things like that through the Facebook page and the Facebook kind of groups and stuff like that. Have you had any feedback back from the kind of the people who have maybe backed previous kind of Catacombs projects?
Well, there's quite a bit of feedback that I've received. There's a friend of mine, Christian Bush, for example. He's a big Catacombs fan. He, in fact, runs an annual Catacombs Gen Con event. On Friday night, he'll set up copies of Catacombs and run those games with people. And I showed him cubes at this past Gen Con, and he really liked the look of it and felt that this was going to be something that he was interested in. On the other end of the spectrum, I publicly showed a near complete prototype at Dice Tower Con this year, and I happened to meet some previous backers of our campaigns, and they were all seemed pretty supportive and interested in what we were doing, and and said, yeah, we understand that this is going to be different from the typical dexterity flicking discs type mechanics, but what you've put together here and the way that it's presented looks pretty interesting and engaging, and we'd like to learn more and give it a try. So I'm actually not concerned about it. I think there's enough integration with the Catacombs world that people are going to see it as being a logical extension of it all. This is not the Catacombs theme just pasted onto this. There's a lot of thought in the art direction to really bring the world to life in a sense. So there's some characters now that we can focus on that have some importance in the world of Catacombs, but when you first open Catacombs 3E, you don't necessarily know about them. So now we can present some of these characters and let people learn a bit more about what they're all about.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is because you're involved. I'm not being funny here, but I mean, you just said yourself. I mean, you don't take days off. You don't take holidays. It's like to the point where it's fairly noticeable that when you get behind a project, you're 110% behind the project. And I think that goes a long way, that when you're presenting your next project, and let's face it, it's all the ones that have funded, Conquest, Catacombs and Castles, the Werven's Lair, the big box, the Wildland expansion. I mean, I don't mean to be blowing smoke up your ass here, but kind of, that I have a vague guess, potentially, that when you put Catacombs Cubes out there, there's going to be a lot of interest in it because people will know you'll be the type of person that's going to put the work in, and you've always proven in the past to put the work in. So they think, well, even though I don't know the project, even though I'm not sure of the mechanics, even though I'm not sure of the game itself, I know that like Aron's behind it, which means that if it's the same kind of attention to detail and passion that's behind his previous efforts, then this is a shoo-in, if you know what I mean. I don't mean to be sycophantic. That sounded sycophantic.
No, I understand what you mean. I mean, but I'm hoping also that they can see that broadly a lot of the development has gone into the game already. The artwork is finished. There's none of this, we've got to wait around for the artwork. It's finished. The game is well play tested. The manual is complete at launch. It's not one of these, okay, well, here's a draft manual in Google Docs, right? Like it's the manual. It's complete. Yeah. It's there. And, for whatever you might say about me, we do have Karsten Reuters of Schwerkraft Verlag publishing a German language version. And he's very discriminating about the games that he gets behind. I mean, he's the gentleman that pretty much chose Terraforming Mars. He was one of the very early, if not the first or second, licensees of Terraforming Mars, and went on to see that game nominated for the Spiel des Jahres prize, along as well with Raiders of the North Sea. So he and his team really like what they see with Catacombs Cubes. And they've obviously published Catacombs 3 and in German as well. So at launch, there's another credible voice making the game available in another language. So for some bigger companies, that's not really a big deal. But for a small company like us, to have that extra boost of credibility is really appreciated.
How's it been with the marketing then? I mean, is it still a tricky horse? I mean, you must have. Does Kickstarter still seem to be changing how it's running and how it's operating and how you should be approaching it? I mean, even with you having these successful projects behind you, are you still having to seeing you're having to make an effort with the marketing in order to guarantee that this is going to get picked up and funded?
Well, what we've been doing is reaching out to our existing backers on our Catacombs 3 playmats campaign, because many of them are some of the core Catacombs players, and it's not been my intention to spam them with details about Catacombs Cubes, but periodically in updates I've been informing them about the progress that we've been making. I just put it at the bottom of an update and say, okay, oh, by the way, we might have been waiting for something from the factory that's working on Catacombs 3, the playmats, and waiting for some feedback, and now we want to see what, we want to, or rather I should say, we want to show what we've been working on with Catacombs Cubes.
Yeah.
And in addition to all of that, of course, we've been reaching out to people on the various social media channels, like yourself, that will be presenting their own opinions of the game. We've been publicly showing it at conventions, the Dice Tower Con convention in particular, and we've been soliciting feedback from some of our key supporters in the past. So, for example, I mentioned Christian earlier. So we do our best to broadcast the message to the best of our ability. One of the other things I should mention is that we are hoping to release the game this year, and we are hoping to announce the German language version at the Essenspiel show, and we're hoping to be launching and or announcing the English language version at PAX Unplugged. So and of course there's going to be all of the various promotion that we're going to do around the Kickstarter campaign itself. So Cardboard Herald, for example, is preparing a video giving an overview of the game, and Twist Gaming are doing a complete playthrough, which will also be available for people to watch.
That'd be cool. What's the price of entry? And have you had to watch the price of entry because of the fluctuating exchange rates as well?
Well, it's precisely because of the fluctuating exchange rates that I don't want to name a price right this moment, because it's going to get frozen in time here on the show. But I can say that in terms of let's say a retail version of the game, we're aiming for about that $49.99 USD price point. That's the approximate price point that we are looking at. Now, of course, when we run our Kickstarter campaign, the prices in that Kickstarter campaign are expressed in Canadian dollars. So, and that's the exchange rate that's going to fluctuate. The other aspect of this too is that we can talk all we want about so-called retail, but our retail availability for our products, given that we're a small publisher, tends to be spotty in some cases.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of it, and that's fine. So that's how we very much emphasize a direct sales model. And so in some cases, the Kickstarter campaign may be, in fact, the best way to get the game. Of course, we'll make it available at our online store, and we're always doing our best to secure additional distribution.
Yeah.
It'll be broadly available, I think it's safe to say, in the US and Canada, but Europe and Asia and Australia can be a little more questionable. Now, I'm always doing my best to make progress on these fronts. I've made some progress in regards to Australia recently, for example, but that's where we stand when it comes to the pricing side of it. What we're trying to do in the campaign is to keep it pretty simple. So whereas I alluded to previously with the Catacombs 3 with the playmats, we had kind of this sushi bar model. With Cubes, we want to keep it pretty straightforward. We're not going to be offering any other Catacombs-related products during the campaign. It's going to be focused front and center on Cubes. There'll be the game itself, and then there'll be the game with some add-ons. Okay? And the primary add-on is the 26-inch by 26-inch square neoprene playmat. Okay? So you don't need the playmat to play the game, but it's a really nice accessory because it helps you organize the village tiles on the table. Yes. It kind of integrates the quarry quarry board with the main work track planning board. So we don't really want to get into this kind of complex add-on section or anything like that. It's really just two pledge levels, the game plus a second pledge level where it's like all in, if you like. And the key selling point of that all in is the playmat. So very, very simple pricing model, and that hopefully will keep things easy for us. As easy as a Kickstarter campaign can be expected to be.
As easy as an Elzra Kickstarter can expect it to be. Because it does occasionally. You do get a bit of days of your lives sometimes with the kind of the campaigns and various kind of things happening and stuff like that. It's always, it's always interesting.
Well, one thing that's nice about this campaign is that in terms of production, we're quite a ways along on it.
We'll make sure that we put all the links in the show notes so that we've got notes to show. I can only wish you the best of luck with the campaign. I will be certainly taking a nosy at it because I've already taken a nosy at the rulebook and it does look fantastic and fun, and yes, I would say if you're in any doubt at all, I have to put my hand on the table and say I'm a big fan of your work. So there you go, and I'm horrifically biased. I'm horrifically biased. So there you go. But we will put all the links in the show notes so people can catch up with the Kickstarter, which is going to be out there in the wild by the time people are actually listening to this. So
that's
that
right.
Should be
yes.
Quite
yes,
good.
Correct.
If people want to keep an eye on you anyway, where do you exist on the internet webs?
On Twitter at Elzra Games and also at Catacombs Game. Facebook as well, same thing. Elzra Games, Catacombs Game. And always interested in hearing from people, comments, questions. People can email me at Aron, A-R-O-N, at Elzra, ELZRA.com.
Email him to take a break. Yeah. Let's get a campaign going. Take a day off. Hashtag Aron take a day off kind of thing.
Well, you know what? I tried to do it yesterday, for example. Nazilla and I went for a walk in a conservation area. Okay, let's just take a break. And because I was involved in some discussion around, some translation work that was being done, and it's time sensitive, I'm walking down the trail and I'm actually writing out email at the same time to try and coordinate between people that are 6 hours ahead of us and then also people that are in our time zone and all of that on a Sunday, of course.
She's a very, very patient woman. Anyway, if you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet web, search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and we've got a blog where we write stuff, and it's blogspot.com with We're Not Wizards in the front. We've got our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. We've got all other lots of little things, places you can find us. And you can also find us on all the podcast catchers of choice. If you do like what you've listened to tonight, then please go ahead and tell somebody else. Especially about this episode, because Aron, as always, has been amazing. The other thing you can do is you can drop us a subscription or a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. It's apparently changing its rating system as well. So I didn't even know. As we say as normal, don't give us, 57 stars because it makes us big-headed, but don't give us A+3 minus C squared stars because it'll make us cry. Give us something along the perpendicular, like a 5 because it's in the middle and it's average and we're just a little bit average, but the person who's not been average tonight or today is rather fantastic, they're rather wonderful. Mr. Aron West. Thank you so much for coming on, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Richard. It's always a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll do it again. And also would just like to thank you. I think this is the first time I've been on the show since it came out, for allowing us to put the We're Not Wizards recommended logo on the front of the Catacombs 3E box. So thank you so much for that. We really do appreciate it.
No, we really like Catacombs. It's fantastic. Me and Colin love it. So there we go. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Aron?
Oh, I'm definitely not. Just a humble Kickstarter creator.
He's a Superman of our time. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Aron. Say goodbye, Aron.
Take care, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed Rich and I's conversation.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and get your hands dirty. Get some bricks, get some mortar, get some obsidian, get some diamonds, get some bamboo. Get yourself on Kickstarter. Check out Catacombs Cubes. It looks fantastic. It's gonna be fantastic. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.